Hi, everyone. I'm James Milan. Welcome to this DEI update. DEI update, excuse me. DEI, of course, is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I am speaking to none other than Jillian Harvey, who is the head of that division in our town. Hi, Jill.
Hi, James.
I am just going to assume that your life is your professional life is the usual crazy, you know,
Yeah,
crazy antics that it is. But let's go ahead and get right to business. And it's been a little while since we got to talk to you, so we want to get updated on a couple of the really kind of long-term projects that you're spearheading here in town that have had new iterations since we last spoke. So if you don't mind, and in whatever order you'd like, we'd love to hear more about where the equity audit is at, and also where the workshops for town staff that you have been supervising and presenting, how are those going?
yeah. I'll start with the workshops just because they're kind of fresh in my mind because they're happening now. So the racial equity and DEI workshops that we're working with Strategy Matters, the consulting firm that we're working with to facilitate them. We're in our third session now. So by Friday, we'll be wrapping that up. So we've had the first two, which covered bias, historical racism, kind of a history, and tying it to Arlington and how racism shows up in our current state, what that might look like in policies if it's not super overt. And now we're kind of moving into more skill building and consensus building. And so it was really ambitious to take on this project, especially because nothing like this has been done before for all employees. So the scale of it. But every session we have, we're learning, we're taking the feedback that we're getting from all of our employees, and we're really trying to incorporate it into the next one. So, feedback we're getting from today's session, we're going to take it tonight and work it into what we're going to do tomorrow. So we're constantly trying to improve the experience for our employees. And like I said, right now we're at the stage where we're starting to identify goals, and it's going to tie in really nicely, actually, timing wise, with the equity audit. So we have a few more sessions for these workshops into January, with our final one taking place on the 26th. But at that time, we'll be preparing to also wrap up the audit. So ideally, for me, the thought behind doing kind of these pretty big projects at the same time was that we'll have the equity audit report available so that our employees in doing these workshops will now really have kind of the baseline foundation and tools to understand that report, to really be able to see what it means for us in our community, and that it's all of our jobs to start implementing changes if we're going to try and make things more equitable. So that was my larger thought process of how we were doing these. And with the equity audit, we're cruising right along. We had our focus groups take place. We did some on Zoom. We had some in person. In the last month, we had one with employees as well this week, earlier on Monday, actually, on Zoom. And so it seems wild because I feel like we've been just talking about this for so long, but also 6 months has gone by. So it's kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. But we are in the process of kind of having our consultants, work with all that data, work with all of the qualitative information and compare it and use it to the other data that was collected over the summer. And we're going to be planning a public presentation for that information as well to be shared, because we want to make sure that folks understand the process that we had, highlight the importance of the information we're getting out of it and what the recommendations look like, and how we, as a whole community, employees, residents, can work collaboratively on those recommendations. So more info will come out, through our different town channels when we have kind of the finalized dates for that public presentation and when things are fully wrapped up.
Well, I do think that it just kind of adds to, as we've mentioned before, just the crazy pace of the work that you do here in town, to dovetail both of these projects. But I do also like the fact that there should be a kind of symbiotic effect there, especially because the town staff, town employees have been going through this series of workshops, which can be intense, I know,
Mhm.
but for them then to have access to the equity audit, which is more community wide, is going to be a really nice connection, as you were just saying, between town staff and the larger community.
Yeah, and that's really like the whole point. I mean, our town staff, we are public servants. And so if we're not serving the public in an equitable way, what are we doing? So I'm really excited for all of these to kind of wrap up and morph together. But it's definitely been a lot. And I'm really appreciative of the effort and the participation of all of our employees. I know it's a tough ask to ask you to come for hours on end, and it's not like it's just a one-time thing. This is happening repeatedly.
Mhm.
And the content can be a lot, can be heavy, and that's something we all need to kind of sit with. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, but that's a whole that's a part of this process. Is we're talking about things that we've been taught not to. We're talking about race, we're talking about breaking down barriers, we're talking about difference in opinions and how you might have a difference in opinion, but how you act needs to be aligned. So it's definitely been challenging. It's been, I think, rewarding as well for many of our employees.
Yeah, the word that comes to mind for me is commitment. Your
Mhm.
own commitment, the commitment of the town, and the commitment of the participants in these workshops to, doing the hard work to make things better. So, kudos to all for the efforts so far, and we really look forward to, continuing to talk to you about this as, again, you process the results, so to speak, and as you begin to implement changes around town, on the basis of what you've learned through these efforts. So, um, let's turn our focus forward a little bit, because I know, well, for me, always the turn of the calendar to the new year uh, reminds me of MLK celebration or commemoration that always takes place in town on the more or less the third weekend in January each year,
Yeah.
to commemorate MLK Day. And so I would imagine you have something to say about that and anything else that's on the calendar coming up here in January, say.
Yeah. So I'm definitely really excited to share that in 2023, which I can't believe is in like 2 weeks, um, that the 35th annual Martin Luther King Jr. Birthday observance celebration is going to resume in person in Town Hall on January 16th. So the MLK Observance Committee is so grateful that they're able to return in person, since the last two celebrations were virtual and we
Hmm.
worked with ACMi. Y'all were wonderful to be able to make that happen for the community because we know it was something that folks look forward to every year. And with COVID, it was really questionable of how are we going to do it. So we're thankful for that partnership working with you. And this year in January, Tanisha Sullivan, the president of the Boston NAACP branch and former Secretary of State candidate, is going to be our featured keynote speaker. We'll have musical performances by the Arlington High School Music Department. And so, again, we're just glad to be able to bring back this celebration to honor Dr. King's legacy of civil rights activism. A little bit of changes. The program will start at 6:30 this time. We're not going to be doing refreshments like we have in the past, just because of trying to be more cautious with COVID and flu and all of that.
Hmm.
So no eating and bonding that way. But we will have a donation station for the food pantry. So if folks want to bring any non-perishables, you're more than welcome to do that, and we'll be making that donation to the food pantry with whatever folks bring. And, we're encouraging masks to be worn. We'll have some available as well for folks, but we're just really excited to be able to kind of go back to normal with this, especially this year being the 35th year. So hoping everyone will come out for that or watch it. It'll be recorded and live, so you can see it if you don't want to come in person as well. And then I think after that, the next event that is planned, I know the Council on Aging is having their annual Lunar New Year celebration, which again is returning in person. So that'll be at the Council on Aging on Thursday, February 2nd. But yeah, more details to come on things that'll be happening.
Great. And yeah, just to echo one thing you said, you guys did a great job these last couple of years doing the MLK commemoration virtually. And, it was totally successful, in my opinion, both of those years. But man, nothing beats getting together in town hall in the beautiful auditorium with tremendous people to listen to, whether they are talented musicians or wonderful speakers, and really to have the spirit of this great man kind of imbue that room, which I have felt before and look forward to feeling again. So just really share your excitement in terms of returning live in January 16th. I'm marking it on my calendar right now.
Great.
All right. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention before we let you go?
Yeah, I just wanted to recap, I think some of the events that I had said were coming up the last time we spoke. So I think it was in October. But since then, some events took place in November that to me were really just a great showing of how the community comes together. So on, I want to say it was November 10th, the Council on Aging had their annual Sage Table Dinner, which was co-sponsored by the Rainbow Commission. And it was really wonderful. I was super grateful that I was able to attend. It was also in person, something that brings people together that in the last few years was difficult to not have that same feeling. And I was able to participate in these intergenerational LGBTQ conversations and just connect with different community members and some of our seniors. And it was really a great reminder of why we do the work that we do, that you're able to, provide a service that has a positive impact on your community. And the other event too that took place on the 20th of November, the Rainbow Commission held a Transgender Day of Remembrance Vigil. And that was in co-sponsorship with both the Human Rights and Disability Commissions and the First Parish Church. And with that, candles were given to attendees, a moving poem was shared, and 32 flags were put on the lawn of First Parish to recognize those transgender individuals who lost their lives to bias-motivated violence in 2022. And remarks were given by Reverend Erica from the church and one of our select board members. So it was just really a moving and timely vigil. And it's just, again, another reminder of how the community in Arlington comes together and is there for support. And it's a great community. It was just a good reminder of that. So yeah, I just wanted to recap those and looking forward to more of that in the new year.
Great. Yeah, I'm glad that I asked you if there was anything else, because it is wonderful to hear about that. I do remember talking about it back in October, but then it was out in front of us, not knowing what was going to happen exactly. And it sounds like they were totally successful, which is great. So speaking of totally successful, I hope you have a totally successful break from your work and holiday respite. Well-deserved, undoubtedly. And I will look forward to speaking to you in 2023, indeed.
Thank you. You as well. I'll talk to you in the new year.
Absolutely. I have been speaking with Jillian Harvey. She is our DEI director here in town. That's diversity, equity, and inclusion for this DEI update. I am James Milan. We do so appreciate Jill's time, and we do yours as well. Thanks so much for joining us. We will see you next time.